And greetings everybody, weather prognosticator and meteorologist Chad Merrill with an early preview of the winter of 2021-2022 as our forecasts have been produced and the information will soon be heading to the printing press and will soon be on the shelves later this summer. But here's just a snippet of what to expect this winter. We've looked at all the variables and we've come up with the major factors for the winter. And this includes the Indian Dipole, which is a measure of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the Indian Ocean. And this summer trending negative or cooler than average. And typically when you have a year with negative sea surface temperature anomalies in the IOD, the Indian Ocean region, you tend to have colder than average temperatures across the northern Rockies, northern plains, upper Midwest plains, Midwest, all the way to the East Coast and the Northeast. The only spots that have above average temperatures is in parts of Florida. Precipitation. This is a measure of, in the northern parts, rain, sleet, and snow. In the southern parts of the U.S., it's generally rain. And we see a tendency for near average precipitation, a hint of above average snowfall. This would be in the northern Rockies and especially here along the northwest coast. Another factor is the quasi-biennial oscillation, which is still in a westerly or positive phase, but is going to trend negative or easterly heading in through the winter. And this is an idea of the winds associated with the QBO. The easterly winds are the dark blue lines, and that is starting to and will propagate through the upper part of the stratosphere and then make its way into the lower part of the stratosphere by the time we get to the wintertime. So when we look at winters with an easterly QBO, we see a tendency for below average temperatures from the central U.S. all the way over to the East Coast. We see a prominent warm signal here across much of the western U.S. In terms of winter precipitation, again, we see near average winter precipitation with a negative QBO across much of the U.S. There is a hint of above average precipitation here just adjacent to the Gulf Coast in eastern Texas and northern parts of Louisiana, and below average precipitation along the northwest coast. Now, a negative QBO tends to lead to a stratospheric warming event. That is a sudden warming in the stratosphere above the North Pole that causes a ripple effect of weather across the northern hemisphere during the wintertime. So, when we catalog all of these stratospheric warming events from the late 80s until now, what we see is another cool signal in our data, and that is across parts of the West, the Midwest, and then parts of the Mid-Atlantic with above average temperatures across New England. When we look at precipitation, we see a tendency for drier than average winter across much of the West Coast, California, the Southwest, also the Gulf Coast into parts of the Southeast, but there is a hint of above average precipitation here across the lower Mississippi Valley and the Mid-South, and generally near average precipitation from much of the Rockies into the east, a weak signal for below average precipitation across the Mid-Atlantic. A heightened drought across the west later this summer, as you can see with the percent area that is in an extreme to exceptional drought, is the highest it's been since 2000. So this is leading into the summertime, but the drought will have implications during the wintertime as well. Now, when we talk about the precipitation across the west for the wintertime, we have emerged out of a La Nina pattern to a neutral pattern during the summer. And when we look at historical data, you tend to see a double dip in the La Nina trend. In other words, we're in a neutral phase where the sea surface temperature anomalies along the equatorial Pacific are near average going through the summertime. But every first year La Nina since 1950 has had tendency to produce a weak La Nina going into the following winter. We had a moderate La Nina last winter. We are likely to have a weak La Nina heading in through December, January, and February. That would be 2021 into 2022. So when we look at all the weak La Nina winters and we compare it to the 1991 to 2020 climate average, again we see a cold signal across the northern Rockies into the upper Midwest. A weaker cold signal stretches into the Mid-South, Mid-Atlantic, and parts of the Northeast, with near average temperatures across the South. Precipitation for the winter tends to be a little bit drier than average across Florida, and a weak signal for below average precipitation from the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley into the Mid-Atlantic, with a slight hint of above average precipitation, rain and snow across the Midwest, and drier than average along the West Coast. For the West Coast, a La Nina tends to produce less rainfall during the water year, which is October through April. This is Los Angeles data, this is San Diego data, and this is the La Nina zone on the left of each graph and the El Nino zone on the right hand side. So what we're looking at is each dot represents the amount of rainfall during either El Nino or La Nina, and the tendency is for El Nino winters to produce more rainfall, more of the capacity for the water year, while La Nina winters tend to produce a lot less in terms of rain. So we'd really like to see an El Nino winter to get rainfall back to average across parts of the West, but with a La Nina winter, the tendency is for a drier than average trend. So here's the likely outcome for the winter coming up, 2021 to 2022. Starting in the Northwest, we see occasional rain and mountain snow. Definitely a good skiing season across the northern Rockies. We do see some drought concerns, again, as I mentioned, across the Southwest and California heading through the winter. Now, when we look at the nation's midsection, above near average snowfall across the northern Rockies and also the Great Lakes. A few chilly blasts will make it down to Texas, and they should see near average snow and ice for the season. Once we get into the east, we do see an active storm track that will contribute to above average snowfall in the Midwest, the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, near to slightly above average snowfall across the Mid-Atlantic into parts of the Northeast. We also see more wintry mix events closer to the coast of the Mid-Atlantic states. In the south, we see a few chilly blasts, but likely less than average rainfall in the southeast. Now, the typical snowiest month of the year, and this is with the latest climate data, February is the snowiest month in the Mid-Atlantic and also the Northeast, January in the upper Midwest, December in the northern plains and also the upper Mississippi Valley, December in the Southwest, January in the Great Basin, February across the Northwest, and March and April tend to bring the most snow in places like Denver and Cheyenne, Wyoming. Here's kind of a breakdown of the distribution for one city in the Mid-Atlantic. This is Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and I highlighted the 6-inch amounts. This is when you get a 6-inch snowstorm, that's considered fairly significant. And when we look at that significance through each month of the year, we see that February tends to bring the most snowstorms with 6 inches or more. So this is just a breakdown of climate averages for the Chambersburg area. Annual snowfall ranges anywhere from 16 inches across DC, a little bit less as you head east towards the bay. Now, once you head into the I-81 corridor, where places like Hagerstown and Chambersburg and Harrisburg definitely average between 20 and 40 inches in a normal year. The Allegheny Plateau, downwind of the Great Lakes, and also interior parts of the Northeast see 120 to 140 inches easily. And of course, those totals drop off as you head towards Boston and also Long Island, where they see anywhere from 20 to 40 inches of snow. In an average winter, we typically see anywhere from about 25 inches of snow in St. Louis, dropping down to 5 to 10 inches across the Tennessee Valley. Then once you get north towards Minneapolis, those numbers increase to closer to 45 inches, and then well above 150 inches when you have the lake effect snow factored in here across the upper Great Lakes. About 40 to 60 inches in the northern plains, and of course the Rockies see more than 150 inches as well. And then once we look at the west coast, The Sierra Nevada tends to average anywhere from 60 to 120 inches of snow, and even more in some of the higher elevations. And then once you get down from Flagstaff, Arizona, towards the desert areas, it's definitely a lot less. So that's just annual average snow. Now, our 2022 Hagerstown Town and Country Almanac will be available on our website and also in select stores starting later this summer. So if you're interested in purchasing a copy, you can just go to our website, that is almanac.com. You can see the latest information, the latest monthly weather forecast, and how to order a copy of the 2022 Hagerstown Town and Country Almanac. Thank you for joining me for the Winter 2021-2022 Outlook.